Great. So in today's section, we will continue exactly from our last discussion. We had a discussion on inventory. That's looking up for IAS 2. We talked about inventories. So that is what we are looking for. Inventories. Inventories. Good. There are lots of sections. We look at some few aspects. So a gentle reminder or summary. We look at the scope, the objectives, and the scope. We said that the objective is to describe the correct accounting treatment of what? Inventory. We also look at the sometimes basic terms. We define only two. We define the inventory itself and we define cost. So far, these are the two terms that we explain. We move forward to look at for recognition of inventory. In summary, we said that inventory can be recorded as assets if it is what? Unsold. Again, inventory can be recorded as what? As an expense, meaning cost of sales, if it is what? Sold, or cost of the goods sold, or cost of the inventory. Then we started with the measurement. So the measurement talks about how to obtain what? The value of the inventory. But that's where we ended. If we talk about measurements, there are two types. We did the initial measurement last week. There are two types of measurements. We have what we call initial measurement. We said that initially inventory should be measured at what? At cost. But this course, I'm going to meet it 3 times before we finish the paper. So this is the first time. Initially, inventory should be measured at what? At cost. Per examiner. Inventory should be measured at cost initially. And we define cost. We said our costs just include the cash and cash equivalent and the fair value of other consideration transferred to acquire the goods for the inventory. That's the cost that we're talking about. So cash and cash equivalent, and then fair value of other consideration transferred. Good. Now, when we mention cost, we said that we have inclusion of cost. Cost comprised of 3 solid items. So the composition of cost. Let's see composition of cost. Cost comprised of 3. Basically, we have the purchase cost. We have the conversion cost, cost of converting the goods to their finished states. And finally, any other costs incurred necessary to bring the asset to their present condition or location, basically. Now we have a lot of issues under the purchase cost, which include the purchase price itself. Good. Good. Commercial cost is the same as directly attributable costs. Good. So the purchase costs include the purchase price, transportation, handling of delivering costs, which must include import duties and irrecoverable purchase taxes, less trade discount. That is the purchase cost. Now, when we pick the conversion cost, is the cost that you incur to convert the goods from their raw state to their sellable state. Now, this includes the production cost. So they are directly attributable costs. Directly attributable costs, including production costs. So it can be variable production, fixed production, and then that is it. The fixed production overhead should be absorbed on the normal unit basis. Normal unit basis, basically. Then the other costs, any other costs that deemed necessary before the goods will be produce or be at their sellable states or for their intended use. We also explained some few costs that need to be excluded. We call them exclusion from the cost of inventory. We mentioned that the exclusion from the cost of inventory. Number one, we talk about the losses. Abnormal losses or wastages should be ignored. So, abnormal losses or wastages or losses. Abnormal losses, abnormal wastages should be ignored. It should not be part of the product cost. We also mentioned that storage cost of finished goods should be ignored. And finally, administrative expenses, selling costs, marketing costs, all this should not be part of the cost of inventory. That is all. These costs, they must be accounted for in operating costs. So this cost should be part of operating costs, not the cost of the inventory. That is all. But that is where we ended exactly in summary of what we did last week. And we saw some few illustrations and few examples. Today, we are going to look at for the second type of measurement or the last type of measurement. Together we have two types of measurements. Number one, initial measurement and subsequent measurement. So we are going to continue from that angle, subsequent measurement. So let's look at subsequent measurement. That is the agenda for the day. And we move on to the next section. Now, if you don't understand anything in IAS, not the subsequent measurement and the initial measurement, these two items. So tell examiner, subsequent measurement. Subsequent measurement. Now, when you talk about subsequent measurements, we are saying that measurements after initial recognition or measurements after the initial value. So let's assume that your reporting date is, let's say, December, but around August, you bought some goods. Let's say 2017 financial year. Around August, you bought some goods. So the first day you acquired the goods, what was the value? We call it initial value. And that is where you need to add all the costs, those that qualify according to the IAS good. You added all of them. You had, let's say, 50,000, let's say 30,000, good. So 30,000 cities. So that was the initial value. Great. Now, at the reporting date, let's assume that these goods are still there. They are still available, unsold. So how are you going to determine the value? Will it still be at 30,000 that you bought them, or the value should drop because of due to inflation, or the value should go up? Okay, so that is what we refer to as what subsequent measurement. How to obtain the value after the initial recognition. So this is 2017. The subsequent one to how to obtain the value. Let's assume that this is 2017 December. 2018 December, these goods are still available. How to obtain the value? Let's also assume the worst case now, 2019 December, the goods are still there. How do you obtain the value? So in short, subsequent measurements includes the measurement or the value to be placed on the goods after their initial recognition or in a subsequent financial reporting periods. Good. That is the subsequent measurements. Good. So now let's see. Initially, the goods must be measured at cost, but subsequently. Now, with a subsequent measurement, there are two values we should compare and select the lowest among the two. So tell the examiner, subsequently, I must compare two values and select the least among them. So subsequently, inventory should be measured at at the lower of two items, at the lower of cost and what net realizable value. So in summary, you compare two items and then select the lower among the two. So two items here, the lower of cost and then what? Net realizable value. That is what we are referring to. So that's the short. So subsequent measurement. Just compare two items and then select the list among them. That's all. Now we should be able to explain these terms one after the other. The cost doesn't mean the initial cost or subsequent cost. Let's see. And then the NRV. So I'll take them one after the other. So let's take this cost. Now the subsequent cost, we have what we call cost formulas. They are method that we can use to arrive at this cost. Because if you bought some goods 6 months ago, at the reporting date, the cost might change. So how do you determine the cost? Now we are saying that there are formulas that you can use to identify or to determine the cost of these unsold goods. So let's see the cost formulas. So write them there. So the cost formulas you can use, number one, we have the cost formulas. Number one, you can use what you call the actual cost method. Actual. The actual cost is the one that we know at the initial stage. Is the cost that we know, the one that we combine the purchase cost, the convention, and then the other costs. That's the actual. Then number two, you can use what you call FIFO. First in, first out. First in, first out. Can use FIFO. Now the next one, you can also use what you call weighted average cost method. Weighted average cost method. What? Weighted average cost method. You can also use what you call the retail method or the retail inventory, especially if prices are going high and they change often. So in environment or in market where your prices are going high and they change often, and it vary, only use the retail one. However, there was one that we know, LIFO, last in, first out. This is banned by IAS 2. IAS 2, we don't use LIFO. So LIFO is banned by IAS 2. So if you're looking for the cost formula, either use the actual cost or FIFO or weighted average or the retail section, and then you move on. Okay. Now, what's happening is this. This LIFO, by using the US GAAP, they still recognize LIFO as to be the cost formula. Good. If you're using LIFO, sorry, the US GAAP. And then in management accounting, we still use the LIFO in management accounting, but this financial reporting. You know, financial reporting, we have the structure, the format has been laid down. Unlike management accounting, I don't have a structure for it. Good. So that is it. Now we are done with the cost, how to obtain cost. Now let's go to the NRV. What is NRV? Net realizable value. If you hear the word net means you are separating something and net amount. Realizable, I can also do this by sale. So realize sale or disposal. Aggregate. So I can also call it net sale value or net disposal value. Good. So now we have the idea about NRV. Meaning that we are going to sell the goods. If we should sell the goods today, how much are you going to realize from it? That's the NRV. So if you should sell the goods today, don't forget it's not the actual. So let's write them. So meaning of NRV for you to understand it into detail. When you talk about NRV, NRV simple means is an estimated net amount to be recovered or received or derived. First is what? Estimated net amount. Net amount to be derived, received, and from the sale of an asset. In the sale of an asset. So here for the sale of what? Inventory. So if I'm talking about NRV, NRV simply means an estimated net. So net means net amount after deducting all selling costs and any other costs from it. If I should restructure the definition, it's an estimated net amount to be derived or earned or received from the sale of the inventory. Here we are referring to inventory, but in general we can say asset. But not only inventory are not to sell. When you go to other types of assets, we get the same NRV there. So I will also define it again the same thing. So you have the general. So if you want to be specific, then I'll take this asset and make it what? Inventory, because here we're talking about inventory. So of the inventory, after subtracting unnecessary costs or all costs to sell, all selling costs or cost to sell, that is it. All selling costs. That is the NRV. So good. Now NRV is a future figure. It's an estimate. It is not actual. It's something that if I should sell this item today, what will be the amount I will realize from it? It's not the actual. I've not made any sale. It's just a guesswork. NRV is just a guesswork. So if I should sell this goods today, what will be the value? That's all. Now, the IAS to define, this is the explanation. IAS to use the formula of NRV as the definition. So NRV define, the IAS to define NRV as one, estimated selling price. So estimated selling price so much less estimated cost to complete, less estimated cost to sell. Okay. So at the end of the day, the answer will be what? The NRV. So that is now. NRV, that is the formula for finding NRV. So if you are explaining NRV or giving me the formula or the definition, I must here estimate 3 times. So estimated selling price, estimated cost to complete, and estimated cost to what? Sell. That is it. All the costs, you subtract them and then you put them in. Now, what is estimated selling price? These are the amount that you expect to sell your goods if you sell them today. That is the amount that you expect to sell your goods if you should sell them today. Good. Now, what happens is this? It's net of all discounts. Maybe selling discounts, not the net of all. Cost to complete. Usually this confuse with that of the convention cost. These two costs, in fact, they're confused. So the difference is that this cost you incur it to complete the sale. Good. I'll explain further. Then the cost to sell. In fact, this cost to complete is just a modification. Modification was cost. Sometimes you modify the product, you sell them today, change the package, change the art and the color, add little issue. It does not mean that you're not done with the product. The product is already completed, but the sale, before you can complete the sale, because this one is cost to complete what the sale, not cost to complete the product. Good. So just a modification cost. Before the customer, like maybe you have some 10-year-old vehicle there that you are selling. You price it around 55,000, and somebody came and said, I thought it's like a white tool. The moment you hear that the person like white vehicle, you immediately spray the car to white, so that to attract that particular customer. That cost becomes what? Cost to complete the sale. It has not been that the vehicle is not like it's not in shape or has not been completed. No, you've completed the vehicle. It can move, can do everything. Just that customers want specification or requirement or something that needs to change. Now, if this customer will not buy it, another customer can say me, I want red. Another customer can say me, I want blue. So the one that's like you are interested in, you quickly change to suit the person's demand and then you give it to the person. When you go to cost to sell means these are the selling costs. If you are not going to sell the car by yourself, with someone, a car dealer to sell it for you, you change the commission, not for free. So sales commission, discounts given out are the selling cost. How do you get it? Good. So in short, I write some comprehensive formats on the board, and that format should be part of us. If you are using the actual cost method to value goods, the actual cost method to value goods, then the inventory should be measured at the lower of. So cost, this you are using the actual cost. The actual cost is made up of 3 items. Number 1, purchase cost. So purchase cost. So much. Add the conversion cost. Also so much. And any other cost. Also so much. This is if you are using the actual cost method, you probably calculate the total cost. So this becomes total cost. On the other hand, NRV. If I'm looking for NRV, I'm going to see estimate 3 times. So let's start. Estimated selling price, so much. Less estimated cost to complete, so much. No subtracting. Finally, less estimated cost to sell, so yes, so much. So this one becomes the NRV. Good. So this is how the format or the approach will be if I should bring all of them on board. Now, to distinguish between the cost to complete the sale and this conversion cost, I'll just give you 2 different points. Number 1, this cost, it has been incurred to date. The conversion cost is the cost that you have what incurred to date. So this cost has been incurred to date. But this is what a future cost. It has not been incurred at all. This has been paid for. This has not been paid for. How do you get it? This is in future. If I should study today, how much would be the spraying cost or modifying the product? You have a device, maybe a used phone that you want to sell. And then, in fact, the screen and everything is too damaged. So, decided to acquire new set of what? Covers, protectors. In fact, you've totally changed the phone to a brand new phone. Meanwhile, the actual board is very old. So that cost becomes what? Cost to complete the sale. Good. So that is the difference. So this feature and this one have already been incurred or have been incurred to date, or cost that are going to incur to now. And this is what a production cost. That is not, this is a production cost for those who produce. This is not production cost. This one to just complete the sale. Good. To just complete the sale. Okay, so we start with our first illustration, and then we'll say bye-bye to this section. So let's see. Let's pick our first illustration. Okay, so example 1. The following figures relate to the inventory held by MYF Limited at the year end. When you see at the year end, most often they are what subsequent what measurement aggregate. Good. Or you can also have initial measurement at the year end. Probably when you acquire the goods last day to the year end, the last day that they bought the goods. So that one becomes for initial measurement aggregate. Now the following figures, they are the cost. And then the selling price is also there. Modification cost and to enable the sale. What is it? Modification cost to enable the sales. Will it be the conversion cost or cost to complete? That is cost to complete. Very good. I like that. Cost to complete the sale. And then unit held. So these are the units. Required. Calculate the value of inventory held. So let's start. That examiner that you are calculating the value of what inventory that this company has. So there must be heading. So that any person is on that heading. Other than that, but the time for class was now and going. No. Okay, so the value of inventory. Now these inventories, they have more than one. So all what you have to do is to present them in columns. So inventory A, inventory B, inventory what? C. And then probably I'll make some total here. Because on their balance sheet, they should put all the values together and present just one on the balance sheet. Good. But even if you have a lot of portfolios, it's a lot of goods. All of them calculated somewhere, put them together. At the end of the reporting period, then you create them in as one. So the inventory that is on the trial balance compares a lot of goods, not just one. A lot in reality. You can take a company like Unilever, count the number of products they sell, a lot of them. Good. So even you need 2 items. You're going to compare the cost and what? NRV. That is all. I have the day, then I will select. So do we have the cost from the person? Then go to the question. The one that's not giving it to me, then I have to calculate by myself. So the cost here is 29.12. So 29 and 12. Reporting currency, Ghanaian cedis. So 20, 9, and 12, that is the cost. Then I need to compare it with the NRV. I need to compare it with the NRV. Let's go to the question. Now the NRV is not giving it, so we need to calculate the NRV by what? Ourselves. I can see cost here. I can see selling price. I can see modification cost. So meaning the NRV will be the selling price minus what? The modification cost in this. Let's see. That was so working. As the examiner. This is a calculation of the NRV. Because you have not given it to me, so I have to calculate it for you. A, B, and C is equal to estimated selling price and then less what? The modification cost. The modification cost. In this question, they call it modification. So you kindly write modification cost. What you see is what you write. Good. The cost to complete are just okay, so the selling, but I think the selling price is 3012. The 3012.22. So 30, so my foreign currency 3012.22. Then that would be modification cost dash 2 and 8. So modification cost dash 2 and what? 8. So I don't believe NRV will still be 30. NRV for the other one will still be 12. But it will be 10. Good. NRV here will be 10. NRV will be what? 14. Okay, so therefore 30, 10, 14. So what will be the value of these goods? Inventory should be measured at what? The lower of cost and their NRV. So compare the cost to the NRV and select the least amount. So here the inventory value will be value of the inventory. If I compare this at least 20, because 20 is a bit lower than the 30. 9 and 10. I've left 9. 12 and 14. So please empty again. Yes, coincident that all the costs they are falling. Like all this inventory, the cost is lower. Just a coincidence. You can change it. Example. Now what we have here is the value per unit. So value per what unit. The examiner has given us the quantity of goods held at the reporting period. So they have 150 and 300. So we need to get the total value of these goods. How do we get the total value? What we have here is just per unit. Just per unit. So we need to get total value. So to get the total value, then we should bring the unit held, which is the 200, 150, and 300. So we multiply by the value per unit. So tell the examiner unit held, meaning that's the proportion of the unit. So 200, 150, and 300. So if I should multiply this, I'll get the total value of the total value. Okay, so let me take these workings out small. Okay. So 20 cedis times 200. That should give us 4,000 cedis. And then 9 cedis times 150 units. That should give us 1350. 1350. 1350. Then 30 by 12. That should give us 3,600. 3,600. Good. Basically. When you are done, you add all the three together to get overall cost, and that's what you're going to formally present in your financial position as your inventory value. How do you get it? Good. So I am done. Now, if I do one, you do one mapping. I want to start that one early today. So just some few points down, and now you look at the next one for me. Okay, now let's look at this particular question. So this is the one that I'm going to try for me. Required. Calculate the gross profit of the company for the year ended at the 1st March 2014. So for gross profit, I need only two items: my sales, my cost of sales. Done. Okay, in cost of sales, I need three items. I need opening inventory, purchases, and closing inventory. Now, this closing inventory, I must make sure that I select what the lower of the cost and the NRV. How do I get it? So the inventory valuation balances. The MX Simmons Crystal trading as SC Fashions and her financial year on the 1st March. So every year, the end of the 1st March. And it will start on 1st April, right? At 1st April 2013, it had a goods in inventory valued at what? 8,800. That becomes what? Opening inventory. Okay. During the year to the 1st March, he purchased goods. During the year to the 1st March 2014, she purchased goods costing 48,000. So that's purchases, right? So if I should end the opening inventory is 8,800, purchases 48,000. I'm done. If I should end here, good. Fashion goods which cost 2,100 were still held in inventory. Were still held in inventory. So we assume that her closing inventory was 2,100. Okay. As of the 1st March 2014. The company believed that these goods could only now be sold at what? At the sale price of 400 Ghana cedis. So that is what? The sale value. But that's the NRV of goods costing 2,100. So if I should end here, the closing inventory, the cost is what? 2,100. Or the NRV? 400. So I could select the 2,100 or the 400. But the 2,100, right? Or the 400. 400 because the lower effect. Now the next section. Sales for the year were 81,400. So that's the sales for revenue. Let's see how best we can calculate for the gross profit. Let's go to the board. Gross profit. Don't forget the three for the boss. The name of the company, and then the requirement. So SC Fashions Limited. We are calculating what the gross profit. Our reporting currency in Ghanaian cedis as sales revenue. So the sales revenue will be, they give it to us free of charge, 81,400. Plus the cost of sales, so cost of sales. And the cost of sales calculation will be, start by saying open inventory, which we have 8,800 from the question. Add purchases. Add your purchases to it. Purchases was 48,000. Purchases was 48,000. Less your closing inventory. Now this closing inventory can select a lower compared to values. So the values are, the cost is 2,100, NRV is what? 400. So the closing inventory will be 400. So less closing inventory or less 400. Even though the cost is what? even though the cost is 2,100. Okay, so another day, the finance over here will be my cost of sales. I'll take it off from the sales and I'll get the gross profit. And at the end of the game. Okay. So let's see. Let's put them together. So 8,800, if I take 400 from it, I get 8,400. So here 56,400. So I'll put it here 56,400. Okay, so 56,400. At the end of the day, I'll compare this and then we get a gross profit. So therefore, the gross profit will be the gross profit is from this. So this from this will probably give us good. So 25,000 is the gross profit. That is the end of the game. Okay. Now, we're going to do what we call the reasons or the circumstance that can lead to a lower NRV. And right after this, we look at the accounting treatment. Good. So over here, the cost of the asset was 2,100. The NRV was given to us straightforward. It was 400. So we just compare it and then put the lower amount there. Sometimes they'll not give the NRV. They'll give the selling price, the cost, the selling cost, cost to complete, modification cost. Then you have to calculate it by yourself. If the NRV is not given, you have to do what? Calculate it by yourself. But if it's given, you come to the examiner and then you pick it and then you move on. And that is the situation that you are likely to have in the exams. Okay. Now let's look at some circumstances that may lead to a lower NRV. So tell me, why you have a cost? So you have an inventory. The cost is 2,100, but the NRV is 400. What will happen? That the amount you expect to recover is lower than the cost that you bought it is. What cost us? What are the circumstances that can lead to such situation? So circumstances where the NRV is lower. Any idea on that? There's a practical issue. It was some books some few months ago. Just that now, if you sell these goods, you might not recover the actual cost. In fact, you get something lower than the actual cost. Good. You get something lower than the actual cost. What will be the cost of this? Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. It means that out of the drive, out of the scope, the situation where NRV may be what lower than the cost situation, possible situation. Number one, if the goods are what damaged or slow moving, damaged, outdated, or slow moving inventory. Damage. And this now they sell the damaged goods, very cheap. Can you buy 3 for 1? So and outdated. That's why sometimes getting to Xmas, look at the products. They release it, that will be to clear. The expiry date left 3 days. or some few days to expire, and then they reduce the price for you. Yes, it can let you recover the cost, the actual cost, because the goods is closer to it what life or death state. Now, number two, we can talk about decrease in selling price. Decrease in what? Selling price. Decrease in your selling price. If after purchase these goods, have you seen COVID time? Yes. Have you seen COVID time? You bought some goods, those that bought the facial. The bought facial, in fact, in Ghana, when it came, it was around 120. Yes, the first set was sold at 120. In fact, it was for the politicians when I go for their programs. It came to 80 cities, fine. A plan itself was 60 cities, fine. Good. What happened is this. It came to, in fact, 35, and finally land dropped to 20. Yes, 20. In fact, it came to 3 cities. And now it came to 2 cities plus spring rolls. Came to 2 cities plus spring rolls. That's the thing to do. For something that you've acquired more than 3 cities. Now going for 2 cities plus what? Spring rolls. And finally land itself on what? 1 Ghana city. Still going to buy it. And now 3 for 1 city. Still going to buy it. Look at those maps, the same thing. And the price going down. Yes. So that is it. So assuming that you got your own at, let's say, just 80 cities in that time, and then go to set at 120. We're keeping this goods. Oh, let me wait for small, maybe the price go up. I then realize the price is now at what? 1 city, you need to provide spring rolls in addition before we buy it from you. So decrease in selling price could let you what? Recover something lower than the cost when the selling price are going down. Then point number 3. Point number 3. Point number 3. Now, you can also have errors, mistakes, errors in computation of the cost and then the NRV2. Inventory count, link on the inventory wall. So either you have over or underestimated your goods, can also lead to wrong inventory valuation. Then the next one will be strategic management decision. Point number 4, as a strategic management decision. Strategic management decision. Strategic what? Management decision. Strategic management decision. Now, sometimes if you see some people selling their goods at a reduced price, it has not. Yes. Okay. So strategic management decision. Sometimes you go to the market, getting to the end of the Christmas or auction, or the company is collapsing, or the headquarters announced that everything of the company must sell it. And you are selling this item at a reduced price. It has not been that this goods itself is 40, no. It can be a strategic management decision. I can give an example for competition purposes. Quick example is when the country where Pepsi said that still what? 1 city. Pepsi said still 1 city. How is still 1 city? Okay. And our Coke price was 2 Ghana cedis by then, where Pepsi is still what 1 cedi. And then immediately Coke said, no, let's also go to 1 cedi. So Coke reduced it to what 1 cedi. But for competition purposes. So that is strategic management decision. Management can sell their goods at low. Look at how they sell some of these charitable goods. It's far below what the cost that they incur to obtain them. Look at how they sell some of the government goods, power, electricity, and water. The amount that you pay, in fact, is far below the cost of producing these utilities. That is why most of the government sectors are in high debt because the cost of producing these goods is far higher than the amount they charge. Now, when Coke realized that they can't stand at 1 cedi, they increased it to, in fact, it came to 2 cedi 50 pesos, but double it and now finally land on 3 cedis. Yes, from 1 cedi now straight to what? 3 cedis. Because they want to recoup, because I think it was 2 cedi. So they want to recoup all the losses that they made during that period. Yes. So that is the situation. So these are the circumstances that may let you have what NRV a bit lower than the cost. These are the situations. You can also have what we call passage of time or technology. Maybe this product have some technology. Look at how iPhone 4, a brand new iPhone 4 in current today terms of no use, we will still not get what the cost of it. Then I will still go lower because of what the passage of what technology, the passage of time, or obsolescence. Okay, now let's see. Now I'm going to pick the next question. The next question, in fact, you do it. And then we get to the almost extreme end of IAS 2. Then one more item. Let's go to tutorial question number 3A. Tutorial question 3A from the same material. Tutorial question 3A from the same material. And remaining examples especially example 5 and example 7 and example 2. Yes. Now you can combine forces. That's example 7. Good. The job question 1 and 2 are also here. Going to combine forces. Let's go to the job question 3. A. We only do the A. And then we look at the B afterwards. So it's just the A. So you are required to value the following items of our inventory. So A alone, different from the B. A is on its own. Tutorial question 3. That's page 15. Tutorial question. Now, to value inventory, we need to get a cost. We need to get an NRV. Compare these two and pick the least among them. That is all. So these two figures that they're giving us, each of them is there and each of them is the cost. That is all. So material costing $12,000. So the cost is what? 12,000 automatic. So it's about material. So I'm valuing the material. The cost is $12,000. Okay, let me go and see it and get it now. But for processing and assembly for a profitable special order, since buying these items, the cost price has what fallen to $10,000. Now the cost has fallen to $10,000, meaning that that is the, in fact, we call it replacement cost. If I should replace these goods, I need to spend $10,000. I bought the goods at $12,000. But as of now, if I have to replace these goods, because we have what we call replacement cost. In fact, it's an alternative in a cost formula. So replacement cost is what? $10,000. But to value inventory, we say the lower of the cost and what the NRVs. When we say that the lower of the cost of replacement was fine, or replacement cost. So basically, that is it. But in short, they gave us cost and replacement cost. So NRV, but it's not given. They didn't give it to us. So therefore, the value of the inventory becomes 12,000, the cost. Yes, so NRV is dash. Please don't put 0 here. If you put 0 there, the cost is 12,000 and NRV is 0. We say we should choose the lower. 12,000 and those one is a list. And if you come and pick 12,000, I'll still not give them because you see 0 here, didn't pick it. So don't put 0 there. Don't put 0 there. Just tell the examiner that, or it's not given. So that you can easily select this one and then move on. The 10,000 becomes a replacement cost. Replacement cost. That's the 10,000. So NRV is not given this question. If not given, just select what the cost and move on. Okay. If I do an edition, but I'm done with my own. You are doing the B. You are doing the B. So B. So question 3B. So question 3B. From there, then that's the last sections of the IAS to question 3B. Now I take question 3B. State that equipment constructed for a customer for an agreed price of $18,000. This has recently been completed at a cost of $16,800. It has now been discovered that in order to meet certain regulations, convention with an extra cost of $4,200 will be required. The customer has accepted partial responsibility and agreed to meet half the cost, half the extra cost. Let's see. Okay, let's go to the board. Now, the B part. They're saying that equipment. So already the name of the event that they are valuing. They say equipment. As usual, do my listing, my cost here, my NRV here. And look for the variables or the item. When I go to the question, they're saying that equipment constructed for a customer for an agreed price of what? $18,000. So this $18,000 becomes what? Will it be the cost or the selling price? It is an agreed price at agreed price. So if someone introduces something on an audit for some of your goods or products at an agreed price, what is that price? Is that a selling price? Good, that's a selling price. Perfect one. So I'll go and put estimated selling price or agreed price. So selling price $18,000. That is the agreed price. Good. That's the selling price. Something that suggests that it is the selling price. That is it. Now let's see. It says that this has recently been completed at a cost of $16,800. This has recently been completed at a cost of 16,800. 16,800. So this 16,800, what would be the variable? Will it be cost or convention cost or any other cost or cost to complete the sale? Recently been completed. So that is the production cost. So this becomes the actual cost. So here they've given it to us, the total cost. So completed cost or total cost is what? 16,800. That's the completed cost. The cost. Now, once they say it's complete, meaning that it is complete in terms of purchases, the purchase cost is in there, conversion cost is in there, any other cost is in. So the total, that is what they are giving it to us. Other than that, they'll give us a breakdown. Oh, we bought the material at this. Production cost is also this. Oh, other cost is also this. Putting the three together, I have what we call the total completed cost. Good. That's 16,800. Let's see. So it has now been discovered after production, after production, it has not been discovered that in order to meet certain regulations, in order to sell the goods, you have to modify the goods in order to meet certain regulations. In order to meet certain regulations. Conversion with an extra cost of 1,200 will be required. We said that the conversion cost, the actual conversion cost should be at what? The one will be another cost. That one is incurred to date. So if there is another mention conversion cost, this is not conversion cost because this one will be required. It is in future, and it's cost to complete. So that is cost to what? Complete. How we get it? So the 4,200 would be what? Cost to complete the sale. Because they say that there's something here. It has now been discovered that in order to meet certain regulations, so in order to sell the goods, you have to satisfy certain regulations. And it says that, oh, we need to modify the product again. It's like you importing certain products into the country. In order to meet the regulation in this country, you need to link certain items in. For instance, if you are a manufacturer, car manufacturer, cars that you bring in, make sure that they pass all emission tests. So let us know the car that you are bringing in has not passed that emission test. So that means to meet the regulatory demand, you need to test this before you bring into the system. And this testing cost will be what? Cost to complete. Maybe other country will pick it without testing. How you get it? Good. So this is the conversion cost. Again, the customer has accepted partial responsibility and agreed to meet half the extra cost. So this one, customer says, okay, don't worry, I'll pay half of the 4,200. What am I going to use? 2,100, half of what? The 4,200. So in short, as third examiner, extra cost. So open a bracket like this nicely. 4,200 divided by what? 2. Because the customer will be half, the company will also bear the remaining half. So therefore it will be 2,100, and that becomes cost to complete. So therefore the NRV will be that NRV 15,900. That's the NRV. Then the cost to is 16,800. So at what value should the company measure or value this inventory? Good. In this particular question, the examiner, instead of them giving us or naming the extra cost to complete, they name it what? Convention cost. And no convention cost is here. So everybody you mention convention cost, that means you have to place it here, right? But the project that you've completed, you didn't get any convention cost, any extra cost. It has been completed though. So that convention cost, and they say would be required, would be, I mean that's in future. So these ones are what? In future. This is all this one they've already incurred. So that's what has been completed. Now as now talking, they are done with the product at the cost of this. So no other cost will be incurred again.
So you want the admin costs. Let's do this one.
Good. So basically, that is how we. Now let's look out for the accounting treatment of what? Inventory written down. Now this is the issue. Anytime the NRV happen to be the right figure or happen to be the lower among the two, that means inventory needs to be written down by their difference. Let's do something. Now, this cost, this is the actual cost. They've incurred it to date. This is the NRV, it's an estimate. So these two figures, tell me which of these they've recorded in the book. Which of these two figures have been recorded? This is the total actual cost incurred to date, and examiner that has really been completed. A good counting process. Once you've incurred it, you have to record it, right? So that means this has been recorded in the books. So tell the examiner, we have recorded this one in our accounting books. So this one has been recorded. What about this? Not recorded or yet to be recorded. So the right one rather is yet to be recorded. And then the one that you don't like, if you recorded that one. So that means you need to perform some adjustments. You need to perform some adjustment at the end of the day to convert this 16,800 to what? To 15,900 at the end of the day. So can we perform little adjustment in our books? So at the end of the day, this 16,800 will automatically become what? 15,900. We call it inventory written down. Inventory what? Written down. Anytime your cost is more than the NRV or the NRV is lower than what the cost, that is how you account for it. Okay. So here I'll write some steps here, then I'll give you the accounting treatments. If you don't understand anything, not the accounting treatment. So something like this, what is the accounting treatment? In essence, the cost to be on a trial balance. This will be the footnote, then you compare natural. So when you got on a trial balance. So let's see. Now in this case, tell me the written down. If you have a goods, it costs you 16,800. After valuing these goods, realize that the NRV is 15,900. And according to IAS, we said that we should select what? The least among the two. And NRV happens to be the lower value, meaning you need to delete some part of this goods so that it can reach what the NRV. So in short, I write 3 statements on the board for you, 3 statements. That's the interpretation. So in this case, tell the examiner the inventory should be valued or measured at what? The NRV. That's the first point. So when I explain, the inventory should be measured or valued at what? NRV. Then you put the figure and tell me the reason. It's brackets lower. Bracket lower. So the inventory should be valued or measured at what? The NRV. into bracket lower. Then you put amount there, 15,900. Another interpretation. Now, tell me the part that we should write off. The part that we should write it off. It means that if I compare this and this figure should go down by what? 900, the difference. So the difference between this and this is 900. It means that either I should reduce the cost by what? 900. Because the cost is more by what? 900. So the cost will go down by what? 900. So meaning that that's the second point. So we will call it inventory should be written down by 900. That's the difference between the NRV and what? The cost. So inventory should be written down by 900. And if you are writing it off, it's an expense to you. You have some lose, not necessarily you have to reduce you force to reduce the value that you have in your book. It's an additional cost to you. You add it to the cost of sales. You look at it. Then finally, number 3, you can also say that the inventory should be written down to 15,900. Have you seen? Written down to 15,900, meaning that we are going to pick this figure. So inventory should be written down to 15,900, meaning that's the right figure. Inventory should be written down to 15,900. The bracket is the lower of the list. You need this interpretation if the NRV is what? Lower figure. If the cost is lower, don't worry yourself. Don't need to perform any accounting treatment. For instance, cost is 6,000. NRV is what? 7,000. Now in accounting, you already know that when there's a harm coming towards you, because of prudent concept, you have to make adequate preparation towards the harm. But when there's a gain coming, you say, relax, it can deceive you. Let it come. This is a gain. The cost is 6,000, but if you sell this goods today, you're going to realize what? 7,000 sales. So here, NRV is more than what? The cost. So we have to record what? The cost. So the cost is lower than what? The NRV. Perfect. So here, this cost, they've already recorded it because costs have been recorded because that's the actual, what is being kept today. So your trade examiner, do nothing. They know accounting treatment. Because the right one has been good already. I don't need to do anything. Don't say, oh, we are going to make a gain. So there's a gain of what? 1,000 cities. No. This gain, don't record this gain until you actually made a sale. And then realize this. So that's it. Now let's look at accounting treatment of inventory written down. Inventory written down, the accounting treatment. How to treat this 900? Inventory written down. The accounting treatment of inventory written down. How to treat the 900? How to treat the 900? How to treat the 900? The accounting treatment of inventory written down. Accounting treatment of inventory written down. Accounting treatment. We only perform the accounting treatment if the NRV is what? Lower than what? The cost. If the cost is lower, tell the examiner, you do nothing. So accounting treatment of inventory written down. So anytime the NRV, situation where NRV is lower than the cost, or cost is greater than what? NRV. These two statements are the same. How we get it? So accounting treatment, number 1, just find the written down value, the difference. The difference. There are 2 treatments. Look, all of them. So add the written down value. Add what? The written down value. That's the difference. Written down value. The difference. Add it to cost of sales, the direct expense. Add it to what? Cost of what? Sales. That's leg number one. So this 900, that particular year, they will add it to what? Cost of sales. That is if they have already calculated the cost of sales. You look for a situation whereby you have to calculate the cost of sales yourself. I'm going to look at that one too. B, subtract it from the cost of the inventory. But this is the financial position, the balance sheet. What goes to your current assets? This is the P&L. That is all. But this is the debit side and this is the credit side. Those of you what are the debit and then credit. So debit of P&L to be beside the cost of sales, and then you credit the inventory. So let's go to success. So come to success, it's all an Ubuntu for us to complete the game. Then when we are done, another IAS 2. Now next meeting, I'll tackle IAS 10 and IAS 12 at the same time to clear the first set of the standards. Good. Now, the second treatment is just subtracted from where the cost of the inventory. Cost of the inventory. So in this particular case, let's do something. The cost is 16,800. If I take 900 from it, I'll get something like 15,900. Meaning that it is the same as you picking what the NRV straight to the financial position. So if you don't want to subtract or perform any treatment, just take the NRV straight to what the financial position. It's okay. But if you want to also perform workings, then you bring the cost, subtract the written down value, and then that is all. So that is the alternative treatment. So basically, that is it. Now, we'll scan through some few questions like full success on the control, then we move on to the last aspect. And I'll do some few trial works, and then we say bye-bye to IAS 2 event. So let's see it works. So okay. So let's go to notes 1. The following may be relevant. The following may be relevant. The net realizable value of the inventories as of the 31st March 2019 are estimated to be what? 37.3 million. So that would be 37,300. So let's go to the travel and see the cost. So this is the NRV. Just compare the cost. So inventory figure, the travel. So inventories. The closing inventory, the one that travel balance represents what? The cost. So now the cost of the travel balance is what? 41,200. Agree. The cost on the trial balance, 41,200. Meanwhile, the NRV in a footnote happens to be 37,300. So let's see. So if I should move further, the cost is 41,200. And the NRV happens to be what? 37,300. 300. What do? So your inventory value should be the lower of cost and what? The NRV. So if I compare these two, in fact, NRV is the lower one here, lower than the cost. So therefore, inventory should be written down to the NRV because it's lower among the two. Or find the difference. What's the difference? We call it written down or value. Written down value. It must be written down by, compare this to, so written down value. So written down by the difference. The difference will be 2,900 or 3,009. So the difference is 3,900. Okay, so get something like 3,900. So that's the inventory written down. Inventory written down by the difference. What's the accounting treatment of this 3,900? Number one, add this figure to your cost of sales because an expense to us. We have some goods, the value is 41. But now if you sell it today, we are getting 37 or you get 37. So that one is a cost to us. Here in accounting, if you see there's a harm coming, there's a cost coming close to you, make adequate provision. Don't wait for the cost to arrive before you say, I didn't make provisions. So no, there are provisions in accounting. So we don't need to wait for us to sell the goods at 37,300 and realize the loss. Let's realize the loss here now. So that in future period, when we sell the goods, even when we sell it at 37, no loss. But to add the cost of so that will be 3,900. Let's go to the financial position. So here, number 2, subtract it from the cost and take it towards the financial position. Open a bracket, 41,200 less 3,900. In fact, the answer will be the same as the NRV, 37,300. So the same as you taking 37,300 straight towards the financial position. Good. Straight to the financial position. So that's all. Now, if I do one, you do one. You are doing a 12. A 12. That's question 2. From there, I'll talk about something small, then we move on with it. Okay. A 12, question 2. Note 1. The net present value of the inventories after the first December 2018 are estimated to be 9.3 million. So that's 9,300. Let's see. So go to the graph balance and look for the cost. So cost by inventory. So closing inventories, 10,500. No, then that is what? 9,300. Perfect. So here too, again, you find the difference. If the NRV is lower, and you find the difference. And the difference in the cost of sales. Send the NRV towards the financial position. You are done. Okay. Now, you are doing the next question. I'll pick it from very far end. Okay, so let's go. We are done. Now I note I placed it last. The last footnote. Yes. If it is true, sometimes by the time you get to the coverage after that, before I looking for the last footnote. No, the cost of this guy is wrong. Good. So let's see, the net present value of the stocks after December 31st, 2019 was 3.5 million. So the NAV is 3,500. So let's go to the trial balance and look for the cost of these goods. NAV. So inventory, the second item on the list. Inventory happens to be what? 3,150. Meanwhile, the NAV is what? 3,500. So I'm going to do this. How do you do the difference? You add to cost of sales there.
No, the cost is lower than the
Perfect. In this case, the cost is lower and it has not accounted for the trial balance. So here you leave it, you do nothing. So that 3,500 there, you do nothing. So you just have to continue. Nothing will be added to the cost of sales and just keep the closing stock as the cost. So here do nothing because the cost is lower. That's all. How do you get it? Fine. Okay. So you do nothing, meaning that you can perform some work in reverse to earn some tips. Or you leave it, do not affect any of your calculation. So third example, now cost of the inventory, 3,150. NRV 3,500. Even written down, dash. Our value of inventory, 3,150. So there's no accounting treatment. That's all. If you go to your financial position, your balance sheet, even if you figure out what? The cost. Okay, then that's all. Meaning that you're not going to charge the NRV because it's not the one that we're interested in. Look at the figure. Good. So basically, that is it. Now, let's go to the last question. And from there, I'll explain one or two issues to end IAS. Let's go to the last question on the list, A12. A question called A12. Good, let's go to the last question. We call it suffer to gain. The last question, suffer to gain. Great, so now let's look at our question, suffer to gain. The last question in the material, suffer to gain. Okay, so suffer to gain. But that particular question is called redraft. Now they have prepared a financial statement for you already. For suffer to gain, they've already prepared a financial statement. So they'll have a balance sheet, they'll have a P&L for you. They prepare it for you, but just that contains errors, does not be prepared well, the format, the presentation. So now you are a qualified accountant. So as a qualified accountant, you have to now go through what they've done, readjust the things, and prepare it well. So that is a start, another start that we look at. Where they have prepared the financial statements wrongly, wrong presentation, for instance, but the cost of sales calculation, it was shown in the financial statement on the face, which is not allowed. So something like that, take it, say no, go to work is and bring it back. Good. Look at the great two currencies. Here we only create one, right? Or the comprehensive income in that order. The added dividends to the statement of the profit, and dividend have its own position. All those ones. So now there's something that you are like when it comes to reporting. Yes. Okay, so let's go to the footnote. No, last footnote. Last footnote. It says this. The net realizable value of the inventories at 31st March 2018 happened to be what? 11 million. So the NRV at the end is 11 million. So go to the books. I'm going to compare. Let's go to the comprehensive income. When I go to the comprehensive income. They've given me open inventory there. They've given me purchases, and they've given me what? Closing inventory. So that closing inventory there, what is the figure? 12,000. Meanwhile, the footnote is what? 11. So this closing inventory, that's the stock. Sorry, that's the cost of it. So the cost of the closing inventory is 12,000. The NRV is what? 11,000. What do? You adjust, right? Because the NRV happens to be what? The least. Good. So let's see. So how do we, so now after the new cost of sales for me, how the cost of sales look like? How the cost of sales will look like. So in this case, I have two methods for this. And I can do everything again, or you go for the next, how you've been doing success and it will work. Let's do the first approach. Number one, if we are calculating the cost of sales, we'll start like this. Open inventory, I'll pick that figure. So the open inventory happens to be 12,580. Again, the purchases, I'll pick that figure. Purchase figure happen to be 92,340. I tell you that now, let's what? Inventory. Now the inventory figure, you have to select what? The lower, which is the 11,000 given to us in the footnote. Then before, I'll now add the wages. We mentioned that wages form part of what? Of the cost of the two wages coming on each one. The wages happen to be 34,690. That's the wages. Then down here, 34,690. Okay, let's go to the board. Let's see. When we perform this calculation, what will be the overall cost of sales? So the first three. Good. The first three. So this will give us 93,340. If I put these two together, I should get something like 128,000. I should get 128,600 and what? 10. So I should get something like 128,600 and okay, so that this should be and 30. Okay, good. So this should be the answer. This method was 1. And in this method, we use the actual figure of the inventory because here we are starting everything from the scratch. We have open inventory, we have purchases, so we can put the right figure in here, include the right figure. Don't come and do the difference, 1,000 here, no. Method 2. In the second approach, we'll pick the wrong cost of sales that is calculated and adjust it. Navigate. So let's go to the question. Look at the wrong cost of sales that is calculated. And we'll adjust it to the inventory written down here. So they are closing inventory, they used to 12,000 in calculation. I don't think they had what 127,610, right? 127,610. Okay, so for this one, she 93, 920. 93, 920. And then we now add this one to it. So it should be 128, 610. Okay, so basically, now let's see method 2. For method 2, go to the question, pick the wrong figure. So cost of sale per the question. So you're still calculating cost of what? Sales. The one that we normally calculate. That examiner per the trial balance. What's the cost of sales figure per the trial balance? So per the trial balance, cost of sales 127,610. That's the cost of sales. So you fix their cost of sales figure from the trial balance. And then if you pick that, what do you do? Add the inventory written down, the difference, the write-off. So you tell them that inventory written down. Inventory written down. Open the bracket. At 12,000 minus 11, you get what? 1,000. If you add the 1,000 to this, you get something like 128,610. That'll be the right cost of sales figure. How you get it? From the right cost of sales figure. That is not coming clear. So basically, that is it. Any of these methods, you are good to go. So I'm done, but you are not done. Let me give my trial work, and then I will explain the last item. We have what you call disclosure requirement. Disclosure simple means at the end of the day, what I want to tell the users. That's the disclosure requirement. So I write a few of them there. One, amount of written off. So the disclosure requirement, what we must disclose to the users. The disclosure requirement, one, the inventory written off or written down. Part of the goods that you wrote them off during the year. So during the year, you write any of the goods off, and you tell us the amount. Two, the NRV. Tell us the NRV, the net realizable value. Tell us the current value too. The current value. The current value. And then tell us the accounting policy used to value the inventory, whether you're using the cost, whether you are using the cost from whether you're using the people weighted average or the actual cost method. Good. And then tell us the current amount of any inventory promised as security for debt. If I've used any of the inventory to secure loan or any facility, can you tell us in a footnote that this kind of graph group of inventory, their total value is 10,000. We have used that one to secure a loan from this particular bank. That is all. So current amount of any inventory promised, current value of any inventory promised as security for debt, as security for debt. This is called disclosure. What we must disclose in the footnote. So that's the note to the account, and that's the end of the IAS 2. So IAS 2, we are done, but you are not done. So there are trial work here. So I'll give a few of them, then move on. Okay, so the other side. Good. Now let's see the trial works. You are looking at question 4, everything about question 4 and question 5. That is what you're looking for me. But then then you try to see if you are doing or not doing. And add the last question to it. So question 4, 5, and 6. Upper primary. 4, 5, and 6. But the one that I will take is 4 and 5. Complete 4 and 5 before, and that's the end of the video. Now, next meeting, we're looking at for IAS 10. We go in for IAS 10. So, our next meeting, I look for 2 standards at the same time, 10 and 12. So, if you are reading, kindly cover this for me, IAS 10 and 12. Great. And again, kindly do the channel if you have not done that. So I'll see you again when I see you.